What's up, everybody? It is Shay here at the Family Color. I'll wait for a few people to get into the room, our viewers. So y'all, as we watch the dial, we'll start seeing people pop in, but we want to welcome you to our show for tonight. Give folks a little bit of time to get on. Right. Let's see. Y'all can share it on y'all's social media channels. You should be able to see it if you follow me on either one. Mary, I think you already tagged you.
Huh?
I think you already tagged you in it.
Okay.
Cool. All right, y'all ready for a good show?
Let's do it.
Yes.
Let's do it. Good. Well, welcome to the Family Color, everybody. As I stated earlier, I am Shay, your host, and today we're diving into a conversation that, honestly, it is long overdue. It's time to rethink how we make decisions and the effect of our families as well as our future. And so today I have some amazing individuals with me on the screen who's serving as our panelists for today's discussion. We'll go around and we'll introduce them. But for right now, what I want you to do is I want you to hit the like button. Not only hit the like button, go ahead and hit the share button. If you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If you're on Facebook, go ahead and follow us so that you can get some more of this good show. Okay? So at the end of the day, y'all, it's been too long, been very long since we've had a real conversation with y'all, and we're just excited to be back with you for a third season with our first episode. Today, we are going to be focusing on the choices that we make. We'll be talking about our emotional choices, those traditional choices that we make, and then those choices that we make just out of reaction to our day-to-day living. The truth is, our decision today either is to build a legacy for our family so that we can stop creating these cycles that we find ourselves living in. Today, we're going to go beyond the surface level. So guess what? We're not going to constrain our panelists. They're going to talk real talk with you straight. They're not going to hold it back. And so I just encourage you to open up, to listen, to take notes, to ask questions, and we will be here to respond. So wherever you are, whether or not you're driving, you're cooking, working out, I don't care what you're doing, go ahead and lock in and get into this conversation, because what we're about to discuss is literally going to be a game changer for you if you embrace it. So I'd like to go next to introduce my panelists. I'll give everybody an opportunity to share a little bit about themselves. We'll start in the upper right-hand corner. Tamia, you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Tamia Cook. I'm an industrial and organizational psychology professional focused on leadership development, emotional intelligence, and just overall community-centered workplaces. So my passion lies in helping individuals and organizations kind of move from like survival mode to more legacy building in a holistic way. So I'm
Nice to
honored
meet you.
to be on the
Thank
show.
you for being our panelist today. Next, we'd like to introduce Miss Mary up in the right-hand corner.
Hi, my name is Mary Dixon Moore. I work with Prince George's County Office of the Sheriff. I've been there for 22 years now. I started in domestic violence, and now I work with the assistant sheriff. So my passion is helping others and mentoring kids.
Love it. And Mary did not mention that she is also the executive director and founder of a nonprofit. Mary, would you
Sister
like to
Circle.
introduce
Yes, I
There you
am.
go, the Sister Circle. The Sister
Nice.
Circle.
Yes.
Nice to have you, Mary. Awesome. And in the bottom
Thank
right-hand
you.
corner, we have Miss Mercedes, and I'll let Mercedes introduce herself.
Yes, hi guys. My name is Mercedes Coates. I am the owner of Coatesway Financial, and we are a full-scale financial services company. And we've been in business for 14 years, and we focus on building and educating families and business owners on how to increase their income, protect their assets and income, and create tax-free cash flow throughout their lifetime and also in retirement. Very happy to be here, and thank you, Shay.
Awesome. Thank you for being with us tonight. Next, we have in the bottom left-hand corner, Miss Manika. Manika, would you like to introduce yourself? Or pass the mic.
Manika Standard. I am honestly, I'm just me. I'm an individual. I'm in IT security, as well as in ministry, and um, we focus on a lot of family building and individualizing yourself and understanding that you are unique and who God created you to be, but also in walking in who you have been called to be and who you have been created to be, and being that authentic you. So that's just a little bit about that. That's
Awesome.
about this.
Well, thank you for being with us tonight, y'all. I am super excited about this conversation because it is one that we have longed for a while. You know, we spend a lot of time talking about stuff, posting statuses, engaging in comments and things like that, but we fail to have the real conversation. And those conversations about our decision making, especially in the African American Black community. And so today I'd like to focus on that. And so I'd like to do a quick icebreaker with y'all. I want to ask y'all a question, and I want y'all to think deeply about it because I want our listeners to understand that every decision we make has a consequence, whether or not it's positive or it's negative. And so the question that's on the table for the panelists tonight is, what's one decision you've seen, either personal or in your professional field, that had major generational impact, whether good or bad? And I'm opening the floor up to whomever would like to take it first.
Major.
Major, major decision,
Mm,
major generational impact.
got it.
I'm talking about cycles of generational curses of failing to manage your money well, and eviction after generation, that type of stuff. What have you seen or witnessed in your lifetime?
Well, I can start. So again, Mercedes here. I'll give you guys actually something personal for me. We we talk about financial planning, we talk about legacy, we talk about inheritances. And one of the things that happened to me when I was very young, right before I had my son, my grandfather passed away and he left me an inheritance. And that literally set the tone for my life from age 23 to now, because having an inheritance meant options. It
Mm-hmm.
meant I didn't have to worry about, do I have to rush back to work? I was pregnant at the time. Do I have to rush back to work? Do I have to go work for someone? Can I start a business? Can I buy a house? It actually put me in position to just be calm and literally think through the decisions I'm going to make at that time, because I had a cushion, because I had an opportunity to decide based on inheritance. So for me, that kind of set my family up really nicely. My brother, my spouse at the time, my son, and where I am today is literally because of that inheritance. So I think it's huge to have something that we can leave behind to our children, to our children's children. Just like the word says, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. That's the
Mm-hmm.
word. So I believe that options is super important. And for me, it kind of defined the direction I was going to go. I started in the financial industry because of that. I didn't go back to work. I ended up starting my financial business at that time. So for me, generationally, it has been a blessing.
Mm-hmm. Those are really good points. Inheritance, that's something that you don't often hear
Yep.
people in the Black community talk about, an inheritance. And as you stated, it is a game changer if
Yep.
you do it right.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll
Mm-hmm.
get into that conversation. Anybody else that'd like to share? What's one decision that you think that have impacted generations?
I have one. I think like the long-standing prioritization of output over like the holistic well-being of people,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it comes to work. I think for many decades, organizations have kind of heavily focused on performance metrics and not really focusing on psychological safety, authentic leadership, and true growth. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
this has kind of affected long generations of different workers and shaped different mindsets and systemic barriers that kind of have reinforced an unhealthy workplace for many. And just as a Black woman, like committed to building spaces where people are valued for who they are, and of course their contributions, but not just the metrics they put out. I think like redefining what success looks like is really important in our community.
That is
Mhm.
so deep. So deep. We are not our outputs. We are not just an employee, but we're more than that. I can't wait to dig deeper. Who else?
Who else?
Um, I can kind of with
What
Mercedes
Mercedes?
because personally, in my father also was one that left a legacy, but not looking at the positive side, when you have family members who look at it and say, you know what, oh, this is us, for us to take and do what we want, and not look at the fact that when someone is leaving an inheritance to continue on a legacy so that your family has something that is in the earth but that can continue to build to make sure that the family is strong. We have a lot of people that they only focus individual on their individual selves. And so when you have people that are selfish and you have people that want to only look at the financial gain, we don't look at the fact that this is something that a loved one is leaving to build on the family so that the family can be strong, so that the family can continue to pour into the earth for your family to grow and for your family to continue to prosper. And so personally, I've had family members that have tried to disintegrate what my grandfather left, and to see that, and it makes you look at it and say, am I able to do the same thing for my children, my children's children, my children's children's children? Am I going to be able to do the same thing, but also setting those proper channels in place so that when things do happen, that the right people are in place to make sure that things cannot be utilized in a negative way.
Right.
Think when we don't talk about that as family and understanding that just because something is left doesn't mean, especially when it's financial, that it's something to be abused.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Mary, what you got?
I would have to agree with Manika. For my family, it's more of like the crabs in the barrel. Don't want one to have no more than the other. It's
Mm-hmm.
always that selfishness, especially when it comes to money. And like you said, it was left there to build upon. But because of certain individuals, they just want everything from for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So like Malika said, it's that take. They're not looking at the longevity of it, the building. We're inspiring another generation, trying to instill in them, this is how you set your family up to progress.
Amen, sister. All right. So this is what we're gonna do. If you are viewing right now, just tell us where you're viewing from. Put in your city and state just to let us know where you are. We want to say hello to you. But I want to do something. I want to kind of rewind because I think in order to tie this thing together, we have to start at the beginning, right? How do we even start to make informed decisions for our life? Where do we learn it from? And based on your experience, how did you learn to make informed decisions in your personal life when it comes to things like this, major things such as leaving an inheritance or helping people to live out their purpose versus just being an employee and getting a paycheck? Like where did your decision making process come from?
I can start. For me, it was basically watching other people,
Mm-hmm.
and listening to conversations and wondering like, oh wow, how do they do that? Like, oh, that's something I would be interested in because again, I'm from the South.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, it's like you work until you retire. You didn't really have it to set up and leave behind. Some was fortunate to have the life insurance policies, but mostly it was just enough to cover, burial, that type of thing. But as I got into the workforce and started listening to different podcasts, listening to different coworkers talk about setting things up for their kids, through my financial banking institutions. And I'm like, okay, no, I need to start being wise because one day when I retire, I want to retire and relax and enjoy. I don't want to have to work until I'm 1 foot in the grave,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like for my grandkids, I want them to be able to have something. I may not be able to fund the whole college career, but at least I can give them a head start.
Mm-hmm.
So I have 4 years to retire. So now my focus is okay, I can't go get the purses that I want, the cars that I want. I have to be wise. I have to set myself up for retirement just in case, I do have to go back to work, but I don't want to have to be able to work another 9 to 5. I want to work a part time just because I want something to do to get out the house, not because I have to depend on this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a major word, dependency. Do you need it to
Yeah,
depend on? Can you
right.
make decisions that you can own your life and your life not own you? Such as
Exactly.
your debt, such as the things that you purchase. Yeah, that's good
Right.
stuff.
I
Yeah.
What
think
is your
I think myself it came from experience with watching my great grandparents. Um, because my great grandfather had thought that he had put an endowment aside for me to go to college. And when it was time for school and he went to, you know, go through the process, they were like, oh, yeah, that's not what this is. And so it was like I had to come out of pocket to pay for school. But the thing was understanding that people look at you, number one, because of the color of your skin, number two, because of your age, and
mm-hmm.
Mhm.
just thinking the fact of, oh, you're not educated enough to know, or you don't have people there to help you understand the verbiage of what's being talked about or how it's being said. And so, where my grandfather thought that it was one thing, it was something totally different, but no one was there to help him actually understand what he was putting money into and what was supposed to come out of that. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I think that understanding that, seeing that made me look at it and be like, okay, I need to get things in order for myself, for, a legacy that I would like to leave for my own family and things of that nature. And so I think that that was a major part because my grandfather, although at that time he was younger, but still understanding that people take advantage of you when you're not fully educated, especially
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
terminology that's used.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a lot of times, depending on the color of your skin and your age and all of those things, when people don't think that you are well versed in the terminology, they will take advantage of you. So I
Mm-hmm.
think
Mm-hmm.
that's a major part for me.
Mm. Anybody else?
I would say for me, oh, sorry.
Oh.
Just kind of watching family and kind of looking at maybe a life that I didn't necessarily want for myself. Um, I joined the military when I was young, and I got a chance to see how other people and other cultures kind of did things and the different legs that they had, whether it was using the GI Bill or the VA home loan that people's grandparents used to buy land and leave to their great grandchildren, and
Mm-hmm.
not be stuck in student loan debt that
Mm-hmm.
you could be using that money to be putting aside for your children. So I think that gave me a different perspective, and a different avenue, that because I made those decisions, it freed up maybe some finances for me to have more education to give to my son.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very good point.
Great. I like that. Yeah. I think I guess I'll chime in on this. So when it comes to making decisions, there's two things that I look at when it comes to making decisions. The first thing is I'm very spiritual. I love the most high. I follow his commandments, I keep the law, statutes, everything. Um, I'm big on loving the most high with all my mind, heart, and soul, and loving my neighbor as thyself. Because how I treat people is how I would treat anyone, is how I would treat someone is how I would treat anyone. So I always look at, is this something that the most I would approve of? Am I doing this right for myself, my family, and the person around me, right? So that's the first thing. I always start with prayer before I do anything. Prayer is first, no matter what. If I don't hear from him, I'm not moving. I don't know if it's right or wrong. If he don't tell me it's good for me to go, I'm not going. If he say, that don't seem right, it don't feel right, I have to go with my gut. I gotta go with the Holy Spirit. And then the second thing I look at is I always looked at experience. So, like Monica said, I grew up with my grandparents most of my life. Half of my life, they raised me. So, I got a chance to see financial gain where my grandfather built his house from the ground up. He had multiple properties that paid for there was no mortgage on our house, but the rental income came into the house to make everything else basically paid for. The only thing that I would say is the biggest issue is I didn't have the conversations with him. But if for me, it was just the visual. I saw him pay cash for cars, build a house, have rental income, but we didn't have that conversation. So I was always very curious, but never had a chance to talk about it. Hence, I'm in the industry because I was curious, right? So that's what my decision comes from. Just experiences, being blessed enough to at least see that, because if you're not around that in that environment, then you may not even have that opportunity to make a better decision based on what you see. You may be in a home where they didn't have financial gain, or you struggle, for a long time. So I think who you're around is important. You got to be around people who are doing better than you, or you got to put yourself in an environment where you can prosper, or become educated or be a little better, just like Miss Mary said as well.
Absolutely. Y'all, I appreciate the candidness and the honesty that you all have shared. I would say, if I were to share my experience, I would say it was 50-50. So I
Mm,
did have grandparents who were very intentional about the decisions that they made. Multiple properties they own. They had the RVs and all of those types of things. So I had
mm,
that to look at and
mm,
aspire towards. And then I had the actual life that I lived with my parents from their decisions. And in that vein, I grew up in what I would consider humble beginnings, because they did not have what my grandparents had
mm,
until, right, my grandparents left the inheritance to the inherited parent. But as far as living the experience in my household, it
mm,
wasn't nice, right? Like, we went without food, we went without lights, we went without water. And it was because of those direct experiences that I said, this is not how I want to live in my life once I get control of it. And so I will tell you that, because that was the direct part of my life, it influenced me to say, you know what? I won't do that no more. And so my family, of course, then I laid the foundation so that we would not have to experience what I experienced growing up. But
yeah.
luckily enough, I did have the opportunity to witness what sound decisions could benefit you, and that was because my grandparents had security. Right, they had multiple roofs, they had multiple cars, they were able to go buy what they wanted to buy, they were able to go and travel and do what they wanted to do. And I said, well, instead of this life, I want that life. And so
Mm,
I would say that my decision process, of course, was influenced by my life just in general. And then, of course, when I was able to gain wisdom, guess what? I started using the wisdom to lead me, the wisdom to guide me, and that has helped me thus far. So, y'all, this leads me into another area that I'd like to kind of dive into tonight. And this is one where I want y'all to really be open hearted about. I don't want y'all to be afraid to share what you're feeling on the inside, or what you'd like to share with our viewers and listeners tonight. But it's about the emotional versus informed decisions, or the emotional versus the vision based decisions. It's easy to react emotionally, and it's very hard, and it's more powerful to make decisions that are intentional, that has vision behind them, that has wisdom behind them, and they have long-term thinking, which requires a level of critical thinking. And so, how do we help folks to understand the importance of making big life decisions, and why it's not important to make them emotionally versus the contrary? I'd
mm,
love to hear your thoughts.
First off, let's just hop into it. when we when we make emotional decisions, your emotions can change like the wind. And so
Mm-hmm.
make a decision based on your emotion, and you're not stopping to use that logic, use the wisdom, use the understanding, talk to the Holy Spirit, ask the questions. You know what I'm like? You can put yourself in a where you are falling so deep and you can't get out.
Yep.
And the thing
Mm-hmm.
about it is, we think that making emotional decisions is right because they like to say, well, females are the emotional creatures and this is that and the third. And it's like, that may be true, but guess what? All of us have emotions. All of us operate with and in those emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So, regardless of how you feel in the moment, because that moment will pass,
Mm-hmm.
but when you're making that decision off of, oh, I'm so mad that this person did this, or I'm so mad that they cut me off, or I'm so mad that they didn't give me the correct change, or I'm so mad this, that, and the third, but you make these long-term decisions off of short-term emotions,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then you jack yourself up
Mm-hmm.
for the long haul, and then you don't know how to get out of it because you made an emotional decision when you should have been stopping to think, just like you was on fire, stop, drop, and roll. I'll die.
True. True. Emotional decisions, where do they come from? Why are we so emotional as a people?
Well, we've been through a lot. I mean, we've been lied to
Yeah.
forever.
You've been told
Uh-huh.
that.
We've been lied to forever. We have been fighting against each other because it's hard
Mm-hmm.
to trust each other because of where we come from. You know, some of us was free. You know, we've been 400 years enslaved. So if
Mm-hmm.
you think about that, when our people became free, some were free, some were not, some wanted to stay, you know, and then you have people who want to, even though they were free, they still couldn't make the income that they wanted to make, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's where you have people hustling each other. So it's very hard to trust in our community, which is, everybody talks about it. Why can't we just work together? That's easier said than done, because a
Yes.
lot of people trying to get over on you. Let's just call it what it is. I'm not sure that we'll ever like fully work together until all of us like repent and come back to the most high. Like I don't honestly see that happening. I mean, you'll see it in spurts, but people just trying to look for a come up, you know, and then some people are truly wanting to be a community, just like you have here, Family Colors. You know, that's where you're bringing us together to have these hard conversations and, you know, be honest with each other. It's very hard to trust each other, you know, because of
Mm-hmm.
what we've been through. So I think that's when you ask that question, where does it come from? It comes from there. That's
Mm-hmm.
the source.
The learned behavior.
Learn behavior, condition, taught
I also
through
think,
experience. Go ahead.
yeah, I also think we aren't taught emotional regulation in our youth,
Mm.
because a lot of our parents didn't know emotional regulation. So if you
Mhm.
see your mom or dad flying off the handle and that's the way that they handle things, then you believe that's a part of your identity or just how it is, and not that that's a learned behavior. And I think that's one of the most valuable things that we can give ourselves and our children. It's so freeing to not have to act off of impulse and have that
Mm-hmm.
amount of control, that discipline to have emotional regulation. And that takes time and that takes a lot of healing. But I don't think a lot of people are even aware that that is a very important skill. And, you know, some people even look at that as a soft skill when you go into the workplace, when you're in relationships, when you're
Mm-hmm.
building community. I mean, you want to be able to be honest with people, but if they don't have the emotional regulation to receive it, it makes it difficult to be trusting and have honest conversations if people are not able to see past their own biases.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I agree
All of that.
100%. I agree 100% because a lot of us don't know how to break that cycle and step out and do different. You know, just like she said, you know, we're more so we're following the leader. You know, we're
Mm-hmm.
doing what we saw, what we grew up on, you know, what we were taught,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but at the same time, when you're making emotional decisions, you're not thinking about the long term outcome. You're just so in the heat of the moment. But that in the heat of the moment can cost you your life. it can
Mm-hmm.
cost somebody else's their life. That one decision could just destroy everything forever. Not only will it affect you, it'll affect others around you.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not thinking like that because we're so ready to react instead of taking a moment, pausing, and
Mm-hmm.
just like, you know what, let me walk away and then
Mm-hmm.
come back if it even needs to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it is just instinct. We're going off of instinct. You coming at me, I'm coming at you, and just like she said, we've been fighting against each other for so long, people don't know how to stop
Mm-hmm.
because just like I said earlier, it's their selfishness. I want what I want. I'm not thinking about you.
Mm-hmm.
It's about me.
Mm-hmm.
So until we learn how to really just step back and take a minute, evaluate the situation.
Mm-hmm.
If it deserves a reaction, we need to know how to give the reaction positively, not negatively.
Mm-hmm. Christine
Yeah.
from Delaware said, if you make decisions based on emotions, they can lead you to a place of despair, and the consequences can be felt for
Yep.
years and years.
Yep.
Yep.
And that aligns with everything that y'all just said, even from when Mercedes introduced the idea that, guess what? Yes, it has been some psychological trauma for many, many years. And guess what?
Yep.
It started at slavery. And if you think that psychological and emotional regulation comes from somewhere, it comes from the place that you learn it, and that's your home.
Yep.
And so if you have people who have experienced trauma over their life, they will hand down to you that
Yes.
same tactic for how to
Yes.
handle your emotions. And if it's
Yes.
to react and cuss somebody out, it's gonna be react to cuss somebody out. If it's I'm gonna pretend like this bill ain't here because it's more than I got in my bank account, then that's what they're gonna hand down to you too. And so
Yep.
these behaviors continue to transcend generations, but we have to come to a place where we say, you know what, enough is enough. And I
Yeah.
think one of the things that we all agree to as a panel is that education is important. We have to
Yes.
learn ourselves out of the rut
Yes.
that we find ourselves in, and that takes getting more information, that takes getting the financial literacy, that takes going to see a psychologist, that takes going to see a psychiatrist, whatever it takes to learn ourselves out of this. We have to do it and be willing to be courageous enough to get to the next level. Anybody else want to add anything on this topic?
And we gotta be willing to share the information. You
Mm-hmm.
holding on to the information for yourself, it's not doing the next person any good.
Exactly.
We're here to help each other, encourage each other. Me, I want to see people surpass me, do better than me,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
learn my good, not my bad.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I
Yeah.
Exactly.
tell my granddaughter all the time. Pick up my good habits, not my bad habits.
That's good right there.
But I think some do to touch on that the habit thing. Sometimes we don't know the difference between a good habit and a bad habit. We just know
That is true.
a habit, right? So
Yep.
ultimately, we look at the fact of breaking free from the the generational curses and the things that we know. We're so accustomed to being validated by man's standards that when we
Mm,
and do something different, then you have to deal with the backlash
yep.
of what's wrong with you? Oh, you uppity. You think you better. You
Yeah.
think you. But
Yes.
I'm trying to do something different. I'm trying to make sure that there is no negative response.
Mm-hmm.
Judge for doing something different because you're not doing what everybody else has done is what
Right.
we continue to do.
Good
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's also shifting from that survival mode to the thriving. So I think when people are in
Mm-hmm.
survival mode,
Mm,
they don't want to see people surpass them because there's a scarcity mindset. There's not enough for us all, so I have to get there first. But if you are thriving yourself, then you are more likely to hand out a helping hand because you're not
Mm-hmm.
worried about scarcity. You're living in a place of abundance. So for you to help somebody means like, okay, great, I was able to help somebody. That's one more person on my team because we're all working together here because you're not in competition when you kind of switch your mind state out of that survival. So I think that's kind of another thing we can do as a community is kind of we are really resilient people and we've survived a lot, but it's time to kind of shift that. And we know that if we ever need to kick it into gear, it's there, but we don't have to live in it every day of our lives right now. We're not in that place anymore.
Right.
Good point.
And totally in competition with each other.
For sure. For sure.
I mean, that's the way of that's the American way, right? You know, it's about the society has taught us to compete. If you're winning, you're winning. You're in the lead. You're ahead of somebody else. But if we are intentional about how we work and support each other, we'll realize that interdependence is much more greater than being in competition with the other person. Because guess what? You can get more done together than segregated and apart, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Let's add one last thing before you move
Yes.
on. I'm gonna tell you what worked for me, because I used to be quick off at the mouth. I used to be fat. Listen, I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I'm telling y'all, I used to be quick. But what changed my life when I gave my life over to the Most High, I'm gonna tell you, them proverbs will teach you how to walk. Them proverbs will teach you how to live with your fellow man. Quick to hear, slow to wrath, and slow to speak. That right there taught me patience. It taught me them proverbs a day. One proverb a day will teach you different habits. I promise you. It says the word is life to us. It's life to us. So we want to overcome the things that right now where we at among all these other people, we're in the thick. We got to learn the word, and that word will teach us how to live with our fellow man. And that, honestly, guys, over the last like 8 years, I'm baptized 8 years now. That is what changed everything for me. I am a totally new creature. I'm totally brand new, and I am better. And I'm very thankful.
Y'all, we are speaking to the new Mercedes. She is telling y'all what you need to do to make yourself over. Nah, that's good stuff, and we appreciate you sharing that experience, because guess what? There is things that we can do in our life to help us to recondition who we are, and whether that be making that decision so that you can become born again or whatever it is for you, it is there, and believe me, grab hold of it. With that in mind, I want to talk about, a little bit deeper about our culture, and what role does our culture or upbringing play in how we break these unproductive cycles, because that's what they are, right? It's product or no productivity in the decisions that we make. And so how do you think culture plays a role in that?
Plays a huge role.
Culture.
I mean, culture plays a huge role. How you grow up, I mean, train a child up in the way they should go, right? What you see is, listen, I'm going to go back to the word every time, man. Every time. Proverbs 22:6, train a child up in the way they should go. When they're old, they will never depart from it. What you learn when you are young, what you are feeding your babies, your children, your teenagers, your young adults who still living at your house, whatever they are seeing is what they, in most cases, are going to do or be persuaded not to do based on them not wanting to live that way. So our culture, I think, we are very talented. We are super talented. We everybody follows us. I don't care if they think we at the bottom. We ain't really at the bottom, but that's what they think, right? They think we at the bottom. Without us, we bring the flavor. We the salt of the earth, right? We the salt of the earth. They're gonna follow our lead in everything that we do. We always got our hand in it, but it comes with great responsibility. We have to be great role models. We have to show our community, our children, our grandkids, those who are watching us, how to live right. We got to show them how to stay out of jail or stay out of trouble, or manage their money or make good decisions. And guess what? They got to be reprimanded, because you spare the rod, you spoil the child. They got it. You can't listen. That verbal stuff. Listen, the stuff I look at my teenager today. My youngest son is 14. He just turned 14. And I look at him and I'm like, boy, if he say something out of his mouth crazy, I'm like, who the heck you talking? I said, I'm gonna give you one chance. Because see, back then my mama used to just smack me. There wasn't no chances. There wasn't it was just a pop, like bang. I was like, listen, don't ever do that again. Here's why. I'm gonna explain it why. And I say, this is the first and the last time I'm gonna tell you. If it happened again, I'ma just smack you. And I do the sound, like I'm just gonna smack you, right? And so I give him a chance. So it just depends on it's what you're seeing, who you're around, and who you're learning from. You're doing the things out of love and you're showing them and teaching them the right way. I think that is super important, Shay. I think that at the end of the day, we have to build our careers around our life. And I think people do it the wrong way. They get these jobs, they get these careers, and then everything else got to go around that. No, that's the wrong way. We got to teach our kids ourselves because we sending them out here to learn from somebody else. So you don't have them most of the day. And then you come home, you tired, they tired, or they in the room, and you only got an hour or 2 hours to try to teach them some habits. We can't teach them that way. We gotta be present. So maybe you might have to change your career. You may have to change your job because you need to be present to teach them what they need in order to be successful, intelligent adults. So I can go on and on about that. Let me
you talking real good right now because that's exactly what we do. We build our lives around our careers and we make our jobs more important than the people that we birth and the family that we come from. And so all of that says that we have our priorities, or some of us have our priorities out of place. When we reprioritize and put the right things in the right place, that's when everything fall in line and life becomes much more better.
Yes.
Period.
Period.
With the capital T. So listen, I wanna ask Tamia something from the psychological perspective. What impact do you think? Let's take it from this angle. The impact of cognitive bias and emotional reasoning on decision making.
That's a really good question. Um, I think that it heavily influences our decision making in a lot of ways that are kind of like hidden, like our shadow self, if you will. I think we filter a lot of our mind through our experiences, our fears, and our assumptions. And so sometimes when those things are left unchecked, they lead to decisions that might feel right in the moment, but do not align with our goals more long term. So think with that in connection with emotional reasoning, sometimes we often mistake our feelings for facts. And so it goes back to learning the difference. Just because we might feel anxious and threatened or whatever the situation may be, this kind of puts us in a more narrow mindscape, I think, sometimes where we can't see alternate paths to still get to our goal. And we unfortunately end up repeating a lot of patterns that have not served for generations and still don't serve us now. So I think to move forward, with like more informed decision making, we kind of have to practice that emotional awareness, without letting emotions lead the process, but understanding that they are still important, and looking at the facts, our vision and our values, and seeing how all of that works in conjunction with partnership, and understanding that like our true wisdom and power is always found in balance.
I love that.
Very good. Very good. Woo! God, I got some decisions to make, right? Because I often wonder that, like, how do we start to tap into what's deeper on the inside of us and actually making more intentional decisions by understanding what, as we say in our social terms, what the assignment is. I think our folks fail to understand the true assignment. And so we misplace our emotions and make our decisions in that place. And then they affect us for long periods of time, period. And sometimes that long period is sometimes generations. Anybody else want to share or add or ask any questions from Tamia before we move on? Okay, well, I'm going to put Mary on the spot. Mary, I want to know from you, a personal story or a turning point in your life when you came to the revelation that, you know what, I'm tired of making emotional decisions, because this is having an impact on my family. What is something that you experienced or that you're willing to share with our viewers tonight that kind of help you to make that pivot in your life?
Mm.
For me, like I said, I grew up in the South, so I saw the struggle, was in the struggle, and I just knew that was something I did not want for me or my family and future generations.
Mm-hmm.
So I became very intentional on learning, you know, how to be successful for me
Mm-hmm.
and not having to do that struggle. Just like she said, I try my best not to have my career
Mm-hmm.
lead me, but I lead my career.
Okay.
So, in other words, I love my job, but at the same time, my job is not going to take over my life. I am going to be there for my family in
Mhm.
what capacity I'm needed. I'm raising my granddaughter. So my thing is I'm showing her, yeah, we can work hard, but at the end of the day, you don't let your job control your life. You
Mhm.
set yourself up financially. You build for future generations. You get the
Mm-hmm.
education on financial literacy. You get the education on how to break the generational curses.
Mhm.
Just because you see me do something, that doesn't mean that you have to do it. Just like I said before, I tell her, pick up my good traits, not my bad traits,
Mhm.
because I am in the process of breaking those bad traits
Come
Okay.
on.
Very
Mm.
good.
because I want better.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I want her to have better. I want her kids to have better. So leaving that legacy, that's what's important for me.
Mm-hmm.
Learn from what you see me do. Don't do as I do, but do better.
Mm. Do better.
Yes.
Learn. Don't watch and do. Learn. Y'all, there is education to be had. We welcome our friend from
Yeah.
Maryland. Darren, welcome to the show, bro. Me and Darren go way back. Big wheels and pampers. All right, y'all. So look, as we move on and we start talking about our future and the importance that we or how we prioritize making the decision to move from survival to thriving, um, what are some things that we need to do to get to that level? Because I find it that there are many people, and not just people that are in the black community, but a lot of people in are living in survival mode. One, it may be because of the economy. Two, it may be because of decisions that we make. Three, it may be because we just don't have a vision about where we want to be. But how do we move from surviving to thriving so that we can leave something better behind for the next generation? What are some things that we can do, practical steps that we can take now to get there?
We
Checking.
have to have the conversations. We have to stop being scared to see each other progress. We
Mm-hmm.
have to be there. Like, this is what you need to do. Here's the information. You know, be forthcoming. Stop trying to hold everything and be selfish with it because you're not
Mm-hmm.
gaining anything by being selfish.
Mm-hmm.
I think checking your relationship connections
Mm.
Mm.
that we have connected ourselves to draw from us, suck us dry. And those connections don't mean you any good, but because we're so accustomed to being connected to people just because we're connected to them emotionally, that connection or that relationship isn't pouring into you, isn't giving you the right direction, or those things that you're doing with those people, like it's not bettering you as a person. And sometimes we
Mm-hmm.
have to cut those ties so that we can thrive. If you think of a balloon, right? And a balloon that's filled with helium rises, but if it's something weighing it down, that balloon can't go any higher. because of the weight. So when people have balloons on tables at parties, you got that weight on it because you don't want that balloon to go anywhere. But if I'm supposed to thrive, if I'm supposed to rise, if I'm supposed to go higher, but I'm holding on to this dead weight, I can't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes we have to check those connections, those relationships, those people that are in places, they're holding on to positions that they really not supposed to have, number one. And so you got them people in those positions, but you can't even allow somebody in that's supposed to help you, that's supposed to drop the knife, that's supposed to show you some things, because you ain't got no room on the roster for nobody else to get on. So clear.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
That's
Yeah.
good.
I would
That's
also
good.
add to that too. I really, really like that because everybody can't have access to you, just like you just said. I think that's super important when it comes to getting to where you want to be. So ultimately, writing the vision and making it plain. So a lot of times, people don't sit down to think, right? I see a lot of people just like going. They going all day long and never get a chance to sit down and reflect. You have to take time to sit down and reflect. You have to take time to write the vision and make it plain. If you write down, like I'm a big writer, like if you write down your goals and where you want to go, that's the first step, right? Then you start to look at, okay, how can I get to that? You may have to align yourself with maybe some of the relationships you have where people are professionals in that area to give you actionable steps to get you there, right? And you start to check off your checklist. As you're getting to your goal, you check those things off your list and you will start to see yourself moving in the right direction. So you asked about how can we have actionable steps? Write the vision. Start with writing down your goals. Where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself? What is important to you? You got to ask yourself these questions, and you may have to go into your closet. You may have to wait till everybody sleep in order to have some quiet time. You may have to get up an extra hour or so early just to sit down so you can think and focus, right? Write those things down. Create action steps, strategies to get you to that place, and check them off as you go, because when you able to check something off, you feel great. You feel good. You feel you are moving in the right direction. And I cannot tell you, Shay, how that has helped me in my lifetime. When I made a decision, I said, I'm not going to struggle no more. I did one thing. I looked at my expenses. I cut them all down to minimum 70%, living off of 70% of my income. 30% should be free to do whatever I want. Sometimes you got to break yourself down before you can build yourself back up. You got to let go of those things that are killing you. Most people work all the way up to their budget. Like, you got your car, your house, your rent, whatever the case is, you are spending exactly what you're making. That is not sustainable. We gotta spend less, work off a minimum 70% of your income, and you can give yourself some space to go out and buy that nice thing or take that trip or get that building that you want to manifest that dream business that you want. Those are the things that I would say are actionable things that you can do today to get yourself in position to win.
Woo, you said a whole lot, a whole lot, a whole lot. And I'll go ahead and confess. When I was young and I didn't know any better, I lived just like you just explained. It was up to my max. If I made it, I spent it. If I had an extra $75 in there, guess what? I'm gonna go get a $75 earring. Whatever it was. I mean, that's how I was living until I became better, right? And then we made the decision when I got married and we bought our first house. We said, you know what? We're going to buy our house based on one income. Even though we were a two-income household, we chose to buy it off one income, and we bought it off of the lesser income, not the higher one, the lesser one. That way, if either one of us lost our job, whoever had the income was going to be able to afford it because it was off the lesser. And so when we bought our first house, we bought it off the lesser. So that means that we didn't get the house that we wanted necessarily, right? The big house with the pretty yard. We bought a fixer-upper. And we was like, you know what? We're going to turn this thing into something. But the beauty out of that was we were able to live freely. And
Yep.
as you stated, we were able to do what we wanted to do versus, dang, we got to do this because guess what? This mortgage coming up and we got to pay it, right? We ain't have to scrape.
Mhm.
We were able to live beyond.
Yep.
So,
Mm.
with that, what are some other things that we can do to go from surviving to thriving? I hear spending 70% or operating your budget at a minimum of 70%. What else can we do from
So for
survival to thriving? Hmm.
my sister and I, we got a house together.
Okay.
So taking care of, so it's that multi-generational housing.
Yes.
Mm.
So, so we're taking care of my mom. So it's me, my husband, my granddaughter, like I said, my sister. So, and it helps both of us out because
Hmm.
both of us aren't struggling to make it on our own. We're coming together, what needs to be taken care of, we're knocking stuff out. Then,
Mhm.
like we're able to thrive. We don't
Yes.
have that debt hanging over our head. We're stressed out, can't sleep. We don't have to worry about taking care of our mom. We're coming together,
Mhm.
and doing that. And that has really just been a blessing because
Mhm.
my prayer always was, okay, Lord, raising my grandchildren, I need a strong Christian village. And that's what he gave me. I
Mhm.
wanted a single family home, a yard just for them to be free.
Mhm.
God bless.
Mhm.
So just like the young lady said, prayer comes first. If
Mhm.
God don't say do it, hey, I'm like, that's not for me. I'm gonna sit over here and wait till Jesus answers, But again, you gotta know. Again, you gotta know how God deal with you, though.
Okay.
Because sometimes just because you pray and you think that's the answer, no, that's really you moving off that emotion. You
Mhm.
not listening and moving off of what God told you to do. Because God can say, no, that's not for you right now. Not
Mhm.
saying it's not for you, it's just not right now. But
Mhm.
because you want it right now, that's what you're gonna go do. And that's how a lot of us get messed up. And we
Hmm.
create those years of just doing stuff wrong. Because we
Mhm.
made one wrong decision at the wrong time.
Okay,
Mhm.
and Murray, you said a whole lot too. So I mean, you introduced the topic of multi generational living. You talked about
Mhm.
making an intentional decision, and I want to touch on that a little bit because sometimes we make decisions because our pride is in the way of us getting ahead so that we can thrive. And a prime example is people who are out here renting these expensive apartments and renting all these things individually instead of saying, you know what, collectively, why can't we group fund and make our
Right.
dreams come true? And I'm telling you this
Mhm.
because I had a supervisor who, when I first started at my job, she used to drive like this old Volkswagen. And I said, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe she make almost $200,000-$300,000 a year, and she driving a Volkswagen." And she said to me when I asked, I was like, "Why are you driving that car when you can drive any car you want?" And she was like, well, it's about us taking care of our family. And so she kind of gave me some insight into how her family started to build their wealth. She said,
Mhm.
my mother's house bought 3 houses. She said,
Mhm.
we used to live with my mom before me and my husband got our house. And then my mom took the equity from her house and bought our house. And then we helped her to pay that equity back into her
Mhm.
house. And then they did it again for her brother and bought another house for her brother. Like they lived together. And then when her brother and both of them crowdfunded and paid for that mortgage on that house, they
Mhm.
took and gave her son for his wedding gift a brand new single family house off
Mhm.
one house.
Hmm?
We crazy.
Mm.
We go out here and we buy a whole lot of houses at one time and be strapped with $3,000 and $5,000 mortgages
Mhm.
trying to make it. Instead of saying, you know what? Let's help each other so that we can get ahead and do just what you said, Mary. We
Yeah.
go from surviving to
Yep.
thriving.
But it's
Mhm.
Our culture is too much trying to keep up with the Joneses. Like
Oh
I
my
want
God.
now. Like I'm trying to be flashy. I want people to think I got it going on. When you come home, you barely can eat a slice of bread or turn the lights on. You got one
Mm.
couch. But on the outside, people think you got it going on because that's what you're trying to portray. Again, if
Mhm.
I did something, that's because I have it. Because I work for it.
So
I
true.
sacrificed.
So
I'm
true.
not trying to keep up with the Joneses because at the end of the day, the Joneses ain't doing nothing for me.
And you saw that thing that was on Instagram, right? We found out years later that the Joneses was actually leasing their car. And look
You
at us.
know,
We done went and got a whole car note. Get out of here. Crazy.
Crazy thing,
Crazy.
other cultures, they will live together. They will build each other up. It's like we the only ones that won't do it because we ain't trying to have Lil Pookie and Ray Ray tearing up the
right,
house. All the
right,
can't do this or that. But it's like if it works for them, why can't it work for us? Why can't we take on that mentality to say, I want to help my sister, or let's do this
Mm-hmm.
together so
Mm-hmm.
that you
Mhm.
get yours, and then we're gonna come back and do it, and then we're gonna get this one, and then. But also, again, like with all of our grandparents, having that mentality to say, I want to take care of my family, the one
hmm
Mm-hmm.
behind me. I want to leave so that they understand. Number one, I ain't struggled this hard for you to mess up what I left.
right,
Mm.
But at the same time, it's like we think that, oh, because it's a little bit of change, that makes me better than the next person. But help me make sense. It don't make you better than the next person when you blowing it just like the next person.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you
Mm-hmm.
just as dumb as the person blowing the
Yeah.
money.
Makes you
Like
just as dumb.
let let let's make smart decisions in the where God is giving your grandparents these visions to say, this is how I want to see my family live in the earth. I want to see them prosper. I want to see them do well so that when I'm no longer here, they can still thrive. But I
Yeah.
also want them to pay it forward. I also want them to help one another. I also want them to build that the family can stay strong. But we think with
Mhm.
a little bit of money that makes us better than the next person, that we gotta flex and do this, that, and the third. And it's like, what is all of that for? Because some people ain't even paying attention to that.
Yeah.
yeah,
So
Mhm.
true. I mean, I think something came out the other day, because I get my news from TikTok. I don't know where y'all get y'all news from. But I was watching TikTok and, something had popped up about China exposing America for overcharging their citizens.
Mhm.
And I thought it was very interesting because, China was saying, y'all, guess what? It don't really cost this much to make this stuff, nor does it cost this much to purchase this stuff in our countries. And we know that, like, if you're a direct purchaser from China, the stuff is
Yeah,
cheap.
it's
I
cheap.
know, I
Yeah.
already know because people be on Temu. And
Mhm.
so they show us just how cheap items are,
Right.
right? And sometimes we are okay with trying to showcase what we have. For example, as you stated, Mary, trying to go buy stuff, have all the latest stuff. People will go and buy a label and
yep,
not by quality. It's all about quantity. I just need to have this. I need to have this Louis Vuitton bag. I need to have this XYZ. And they don't make decisions based off of necessity,
Mhm.
right,
right? They make decisions based off emotion and based off of wants. But when you take care of your needs, then
right,
you're able to get your wants, right?
Mhm.
exactly,
And those are the things that we need to start teaching. We got to learn how to take care of our responsibility first,
Mhm.
and then we can kind of go out here and do some of those additional recreational things just
exactly,
because we so choose to. But you shouldn't be doing that in survival mode. If you're trying to survive, bruh, go get some water. Don't be
Right.
going to go get a fifth of anything because you can't afford to go
exactly,
go drink some free water tonight
exactly,
you know
Mhm.
exactly.
so yeah.
Way.
Yeah,
True.
and it's not to say that it's something wrong, with treating yourself, but make sure that your main goals or priorities are taken care of first.
Hmm.
I could see something like people that really know me, they know I love jewelry, shoes, clothes, and purses. But
Mhm.
at the same time, if I'm going to get a purse, you can best believe all my stuff has been paid up for months, and then I can justify going to make that purchase. But if I can't justify making that purchase, then it's going to wait because I'd rather pay that credit card off. I'd rather double up on the car payments. I'd rather double up on the house note.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that way I have that cushion. So if I do go spend X amount of dollars, I'm not hurting.
Yeah.
I'm not like, oh my God, I done spent this money. Now what I'm gonna do because such and such is coming up. You
Yeah.
know. So no, it's more of a treat for me.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Love it. Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
stuff. I want to direct one of these questions to Mercedes as a wealth management professional. What is one thing that you think we as individuals can do this year? For those of us who may not have any experience with wealth management, what's one thing we can do this year to set the foundation?
Number one, you just need to look at your spending, to be honest. I mean, people have money. It's not that people don't have money. And these are the conversations that I'm having with families, mostly, not so much business owners, but you have money, but you need to know where is the money going. Um, you need to write it down. You need to look at your statements. If you got subscriptions, like you literally need to write everything down, everything, the income that's coming into your bank account, any monies that's going into a separate bank account. You need to know what's coming in and what's going out. When you look at that, now you can start to decide what's important and what's not important.
Mm-hmm.
Shay, what I will tell you, I'm seeing as a financial professional, I don't care if I'm going into somebody's house who's $1 million home or average family, let's say 60,000 or better or more. The biggest issue I see is not enough people are saving for retirement or
Mm-hmm.
putting money away for emergencies. Most of their money is being spent on vehicles. Okay. People are spending an average of about $800 between the insurance and the car every month. Okay. Some people who are on a $40,000 income are spending $1,000 a month on their car. Okay. With no savings. I mean, less than $3,000 in savings. Okay. Um, that is a huge problem. If you need to downsize your vehicle, you need to do that. Your car note should not be $800 if you don't have extra money. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'm just being honest, but I would say the first thing to do, know what's coming in, know what's going out, and start to reallocate those funds to places where your money is going to work for you. You need to use things like the Roth IRA. Use things like a index universal life policy that can build cash flow for emergencies that you can utilize without those tax penalties from a retirement plan, right? You need to start putting aside money for emergencies. If your car breaks down and you can't pull $1,000, that's a problem. That means that you got a spending problem. You're more focused on being a consumer than a producer. You may even have to start to find a side hustle that's going to bring you extra income. Let's just say you're doing what you can. You might have to say, I gotta give me a side hustle. I gotta figure out how I can increase my income because maybe you're just not making enough, right? But I would say that first thing is know what's coming in, know what's going out, and start to make some decisions with you and your spouse if you're in a relationship, and start to make decisions on where you guys want to go. Again, setting those goals up and looking at, okay, I could scratch that. We don't need that subscription. We don't need the Roblox going $20 every week to this little boy. No,
Mm-hmm.
you're not getting Roblox. For I cut my son off a long time ago. That's a wrap. You ain't getting no more from me. But look at that, because a lot of people just don't know what's coming out. They don't know what's coming in or what's coming out, especially if you got a lot of money coming from different places. So make better decisions and talk to a financial professional that can help you, when it comes to how to reallocate those funds.
Yes, that is very good advice. And the reason why I tap you is because I know that a lot of folks are afraid of their finances. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
just going to be honest with you. There are people who probably don't even look at their bank account. They may look at it when they get paid just to make sure that there's some money in there, and they will spend until it is empty.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that because guess what? I mean, the data shows it. It
Yeah.
says that African Americans are the biggest consumer in the
Yep.
United States of
Mm-hmm.
America. We spend more than $1 trillion a year on goods and services. One
And pass
trillion
on an
dollars.
average of $0 in wealth, by the way.
$1 trillion.
Mm.
That is it's just it's detestable.
Problem.
That's what it is. It's a problem. We have a
A
spending
problem.
problem, and we need to get that under control. So if we do anything in 2025, get control of our spending.
Yep.
And if you need help and you're afraid to look at those finances, call Mercedes.
Call me.
I'm
We
ch-
can help you. We
seriously. If you
gotta
want her
get
to
to the
look
root
at
of
it,
the problem. We gotta be honest with ourselves. It took me to be honest with myself. And I had to start telling people no because
yeah.
I like to help people. Your
Mm,
family will bleed you dry. Okay?
mm,
They will
Mm,
bleed you dry. They will suck it out of you until you can't get any, you ain't got nothing left to give. So
mm-hmm.
mhm,
sometimes you do have to say no in love, right? And they just
Mm-hmm.
right.
have to figure it out sometimes, you know? So,
That's good
but
stuff.
let's be honest with ourselves. That's all I can say.
All right, I love it, y'all. So as we, come to our concluding segment, we want to talk about this shift from moving from reaction to responsibility.
Hmm.
And Mercedes just laid the foundation. One, becoming more conscious of your finances is a way to be responsible, right? It
Yeah.
is also a good way to start practicing good habits, money management skills. And if you can manage money, you can almost manage anything, because guess what? Money usually is the influence of most of our heartache in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
I was told that it is because of financial issues that we have the divorce rates that we
Yeah.
have. That is
Mm-hmm.
the stimulus of a lot of our divorces. It's money. Money leads to arguments and all kinds of other things. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
not enough to be aware. We must change our behaviors and our practices. And we want to
Mm-hmm.
talk about what that looks like. So, what's one mindset shift or
Mm-hmm.
habit that our panelists believe every person needs to adopt to create a better future for their family? Starting with Mary.
Um, just like I say, you have to be intentional. You know, you have to be intentional, like Mercedes said, where your money's going. You know, if you
Mm-hmm.
trying to live above your means, that's not doing you no good, your future generations or nothing. You got to cut back to thrive versus just surviving. Then make that hard decision. Don't worry about what other people say or what they think, because they're not in your pocket. You
Mm-hmm.
control your pocket. Have the hard conversations. Do the education, because at the end of the day, you want to thrive. You don't
Mm-hmm.
want to just survive. And yes, I know it's hard to break that mentality, but hey, be the change.
Be the
Mm-hmm.
change. Be
Mm-hmm.
the change.
Mm-hmm.
Manika, what you got?
I would say that we need to be authentic to ourselves first. Um, because sometimes we take on, as we've said, the things that we've taken on as we grew up, and we saw those things are embedded in us, and we think that that's the way that we have to operate. But a lot of people don't know themselves. A lot of people aren't being honest with themselves. A lot of people aren't being authentic to themselves, because you're taking on what your mom did or what your grandmother did. And although some of those things may be beneficial in some ways, but a lot of times what was beneficial for your mama or your grandmama or your great grandma may not be beneficial for you, because we're living in different times as
Mm-hmm.
well. And so being authentic with yourself, understanding who you are, understanding what it is you need, so that when you connect yourself to other people or when you're looking for resources, you know exactly what it is you are looking for. Not what your mom was looking for, not what your grandma was looking for, not what your auntie was looking for, but what are you looking for? Are you looking in the mirror and seeing the true you? Or are you only spending because grandma had a shopping problem? Are you only doing or trying to keep up with these things that you see because you don't even know what it is that you want? So I think that we have to be authentic with ourselves, get to know who you are. Some people are like 50, 60, 70 years old and don't know themselves, let alone like themselves.
Hmm.
But if you don't know who you are and you don't know what you need, you have not buckled down to say, as Mercedes said, writing that vision, making it plain, saying what it is that where do I desire to be in 5 years? Where do I desire to be in 10 years? How do I get there? But if I don't know who I am, I don't know the direction in which I really want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would say. Get to know yourself. Sometimes take time out. Go walk by the water. Take time out. Go sit in the park. Listen to
Mhm.
on the inside of you.
Authenticity, being real,
Mhm.
being real. Murray, what you
Mhm.
got? What you got on this?
Like I said, like she said, definitely know yourself. You
Mm-hmm.
know, authentic. Be intentional. Don't be afraid to be the change, to
Mhm.
break those generational curses. Don't worry about what people say or what people think, because at the end of the day, it's about you. It's
Mm-hmm.
about the legacy that you want to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
That's good.
Yeah.
Mercedes, what you got?
Man, you guys said so much. That was great. I'm just over here. Yes, everything. um, I would say I like the being honest because I have to go back to the honesty because we have to be honest with ourselves. If things are not working out and it's always a problem to you, you think somebody
Mm.
just keep doing something to you, it's probably you, right?
Mm.
It's probably we got to be honest with ourselves. The bad habits, we know our bad habits. Come on now. We know when something is not working out and it keep not working out. We want it to work out, but it's not working out and we need to change. We got to be honest with ourselves. We got to take a real step back and you got to say to yourself, what does a quality of life look like for me?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And I just find that I only can really speak from example, just my own life, like what the quality of life look like for me. I designed a life that I wanted to live.
Mm.
I designed it based on praying about it, based on taking action. Because you can pray without works is, you got to work. So setting those goals, writing them down, figuring out the strategy to get there. If you want to start a business, how are you going to get out of your 9 to 5 to do that? Or how can it complement you to get there?
Mm-hmm.
And take it step by step and be patient with yourself because you're learning. It's okay to
Mm-hmm.
make mistakes, but you got to try and then you adjust. You never lose, you just learn, you just get better. So I just say, just be honest with yourself. Write down what a quality of life looks like for you.
Mm-hmm.
Start to create a plan and strategy that's going to help you get to that and start to align yourself with the right people. Get a
Mm-hmm.
mentor, someone who is doing better than you, someone who is in that area that can help you excel and find people to just get into the right environment. You can be in the wrong environment and be
Mm.
smart as I don't know what, but you'll never get to the next level. Put yourself in position to win and step outside your comfort zone. And guess what? The only thing that matters is you. So it don't matter what people say about you. When you winning, they're like, how did you get there? Because you buckled down, because you was honest, because you
Mm-hmm.
wrote it down and made the vision plain, because you prayed about it, because you stayed the course, you stayed disciplined. No
Mm.
matter what happened, you didn't let that stop you. So for me, it's just being honest and buckling down, writing the vision, make it plain, and stay disciplined to the course, and you'll get there.
Ooh, y'all been filled up tonight. And we ain't even charge y'all for this.
Right?
Tamia, what you got for us?
I would just say be consistent and continue to invest in yourself. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's your mental health, your spiritual health, all of that is equally as important, and
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that each day and each moment in your life is very purposeful. So whether
Mm-hmm.
it's like Mercedes was saying, either seeking a mentor or becoming a mentor to somebody that
Mm-hmm.
you can visibly see in the community needs some guidance, sharing new business ventures and ideas, learning to build community and self-sufficiency, and
Mm,
just understanding that, like, even if it's a small step, that's a step for your future in the right direction. So little steps matter, and everything doesn't have to be a grand event, but all the small steps equal the big change that I
yeah.
think we'll see in the future. So,
Yes.
Mhm.
Man, I could not have selected a better panel to have this discussion with me.
Appreciate it.
And I really do appreciate you all sharing your insight, sharing your wisdom, your experiences, because it matters. And I think a lot of people learn from experience. And I think just listening from all of your collective thoughts on tonight, one thing that I would share with our listeners is that if you're going to make a crucial mindset shift, I think it's going to be extremely important that you adopt a growth mindset.
Mhm.
And a lot of people are probably wondering, what does that mean, Shay? What is a growth mindset? It means that you embrace your challenges, period, regardless of what they are, and you face them.
Mhm.
Challenges can bring forth opportunities. Everything isn't always bad. And so
No.
it's important, as Mary stated earlier, that we learn from our failures, whether we're teaching somebody else to learn from what we've done, or we're learning from what we've done. Learn from your failures and don't repeat them. They're there to serve as a teacher for you. And then another thing would be to believe that you have the personal ability to develop what it is that you want as long as you stay dedicated to it. And that aligns with what Mercedes said about designing the life that you want, designing your future, writing the vision and making it plain upon tablets so those that read it can even run with it. And so your family can run with it. And Tamia came back and she emphasized the need for commitment and dedication. That is extremely important. Hard work is important. And for those of you who have faith and believe in whatever you believe in, I am almost certain that all the principles align in the same place. That you have to put forth work in order to achieve that which you are after. Because let me tell you something. I know for a fact that magic ain't real, right? But you have to put in the work in order for your faith to be operable, right? And for you to produce what it is that you want to produce. So by fostering that growth mindset, you can help to develop resilience, adaptability, and it will also help you through difficult times by giving you the optimism because you will start to see the work of your labor. Therefore, I ask you tonight, I urge you to take possession of your life. Do not let your life take possession of you. Take possession of your life. And that even starts with just saying, you know what? I'm going to deal with my greatest challenge by facing it, accepting that it's real, and doing something different with it. Y'all, I have appreciated all of you being on the show tonight. I've appreciated our viewers, those that have commented, those that were on YouTube, those that were on Facebook. We're going to continue to have these conversations because guess what? We have to do something different. Not only are we going to have these conversations, we're going to start to offer you some resources to help you. One of those resources is right here on the screen. As a matter of fact, I have 4 of these resources on the screen.
Right.
If you have wealth management, if you have stuff where you need to, guess what, deal with your stinking thinking, you got Tamia up there. You are not your job. Like we've said
That's
a
right.
lot tonight. And so you need to make sure that you take hold of these resources that are available to you and also look for opportunities to connect and to network because we have to learn how to help one another. Later on in the week, I will be having a special guest that's going to join me, and we're going to be talking about real estate. So I just wanted to kind of give y'all a heads up, and we're going to be talking about how do we start to build generational wealth through real estate, and that's extremely important because ownership is important to building our wealth. And so, people, do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe. If you're watching this late, still like, share, and subscribe. Don't be doing me no injustice by not sharing this. Share it. And make sure that everybody in our community has an opportunity to hear this collective wisdom. Thank you again, and I hope that everybody has a fantastic night and an amazing week. Thank y'all so much.